Hello, everybody. Welcome to Thursday Crafts at the Riverdale Public Library. I'm Ms. Helen. Today is April 22nd, which is Earth Day. So I thought that today we should make a great craft out of recyclable material and items that you would normally find it from in your house, in a store, that would be put into the recycling bin. But instead of doing that, or having them just thrown out, we are going to make a very cool picture frame, a couple of picture frames, in fact. And these are the kinds of items that you will need to have. Newspaper. Yes, regular, ordinary newspaper. Boring newspaper. Well, not boring to read, but usually that's something you would be making your craft on to prevent messing up the table, not making your craft with. But we are going to use newspaper. And but to make the newspaper a little more interesting, if you have paint around, like this, use paint and a brush. So paint and a brush will give your newspaper some color, like this, or orange like this, or red like this, but any other color, or you can mix your colors. But anyway, it will make your newspaper colorful. Or we could start out, not just with newspaper, we could use leftover wrapping paper with patterns and colors, leftover gift bags, anything made of paper. The other thing, which is great to use, because you don't really have to do much with it, is I take old magazines and I look for pictures in the magazines which are colorful. Like I took a magazine on knitting and I found this. Okay, so here we have like a nice blue sweater, or actually I could use the other side, a quilt. Here's another quilt here, and a sweater there on either side. And those are very useful. You don't have to paint them, you don't have to color them, because they already have color. And so you will need a new magazine, or you will find that helpful. And you'll need glue or glue sticks, and you'll also need liquid glue. Okay, you can even pour it on a piece of paper and use a brush, or if you have one of a little tube, use it with a tube. You will need scissors. You'll need a piece of paper. It could be plain white paper, or it can be colored paper, it doesn't matter. But make sure that paper, that one piece, is stiff paper, like cardboard or cardstock. And also, you will need, since it's a picture frame, you'll need a picture. So, for example, you could take your baby picture, or your sister or brother's baby picture. You could take a picture of a parent or a friend. And you're going to start out, actually, by cutting out the picture and taking your glue stick and gluing it to that plain piece of paper that you have. So you'll have something like this, okay? And I'm going to end up making this a little bit smaller. I might cut off the edges a little bit, but you could actually do that at the end as well. So you don't have to start out by cutting. So what you're going to start with is your photo, and you're going to cut out the photo or trim it a little bit if you need to. You don't have to. You could just take the photo itself, not cut anything, and lay it on that plain piece of paper so there's a lot of space around it. Okay, just like that. And when you're done, we'll move on to the next step. So, the way we're going to decorate our frame is by taking all this paper and rolling it into, so we that make lots of pieces, okay? So for example, if I can take There's a piece of newspaper that I painted red. And I'm going to take that piece. I'm going to take a pencil or a straw that is rounded. Okay, straw is fine. And I'm going to lay the paper with the colored part down right on the table. All right, look at it right here. And we're going to put the pencil at the end. If you've done bead rolling with me, paper beads, you've done something like this before. But right now we're just making plain tubes, okay? So you're going to start out by you're going to start wrapping your paper around the pencil. Just wrap it once or twice. Then you're going to take your glue stick and add some glue, okay, and just glue the rest of the paper right there. You don't want to glue it right away, okay, because if you glue this part where you first wrap it, it's going to end up sticking to the pencil. We don't want that to happen. So you're going to roll the paper once or twice. I'm going to open it up again. Roll it a couple times. But then, since I have the glue on, when I keep rolling it, I'm going to go all the way to the end, and it is completely glued. So you want to have your glue at the other end so that it is perfectly closed. Okay? And when you're done, you're going to have a tube like this. Okay? And we're going to make a whole bunch of these tubes, maybe 20, 30 of them, okay? And you can make them all the same size, or you can make them different sizes. I'm going to start out by making different sizes. I'm going to take some orange one, and it can be a little wider. Let me see, the paper here is wider than the paper here. And again, I'm not going to roll it at first. I'm going to roll it at first, but not glue it at first. I'm going to roll it about twice. Then I'm going to put my glue stick and rub the rest on here. And then roll it to the end. If I still need a little glue at the end, there. Put my glue at the end, and I'm going to close it. And then slide it off and do the next one. So now I have two cylinders here, two rolls here, and they're different lengths, but that's okay. That kind of makes it more interesting. And now I'm going to make a yellow one. Okay. And if one end of it is white, that's okay. You can start at that end. Let's roll it a couple times. And put the glue down and finish rolling it. And now we have 3 different tubes. 3 different sizes. And if we want to make them all the same size, we can do that. We can trim it. Okay? So if you want to make them all the same size, I will show you that later. But I'm going to keep these different lengths right now. All right? And now I'm going to show you how to do the same thing with pieces of magazine. So if I tear out a page of a magazine, I'm going to show you one. So this page, you could cut out all into 9 different pieces. Or you could just cut out this part. But you're going to be rolling this on the pencil too. So it can't be wide. Like if you can see here, it's wider than the pencil. So we're going to just trim these down a little bit. Okay, I took a page with a quilt like this, and I cut a piece like that. And maybe I just want the color on it, so I don't want the white, so I'm going to trim off this end, and I'm going to trim off that end. Okay, and this is okay because I'm going to start rolling it here. You're not even going to see the white strip here. So now we're going to do the same thing with this. We're going to take that white end, we're going to lay it face down, okay? The part you want to see in the end is going to be face down. You're going to lay your pencil on it, roll it around once or twice, then put glue on the rest. Keep rolling it to the end. Seal it. And there. Now this is what it looks like. Let's take the big piece of paper. And like I said, maybe I want a whole bunch of these, so I'm going to cut out colorful parts. And they don't have to be that big, but they have to be big enough so that you can roll them around at least a few times. Okay. So now I've got this for another roll. I've got a whole long thing, but remember, it can't be wider than the pencil. So we can make some long tubes here, but we have to trim it a little bit. So I took this off, that part can go in recycling. Now I've got this piece, and we can turn this piece. We want to cut the edges, we want to be as even as we can. I cut this a little unevenly. That's better. There, that's more even. And I want to make 2 long tubes. But again, this is too long because of the pencil width. So I'm going to cut it in. I'm going to make a piece here and a piece here. So you can tell by looking which piece is going to be longer. And we're going to roll both of them. So again, let's take our big piece, roll it, put the colorful part face down. Roll it a couple times. And then glue it. Put some more glue to the end. You don't need a ton of glue, but the glue has to go to the end. Okay, now we've rolled it up, seal it. And now I have a nice long tube. As you can see, it is longer than the other tubes I made. But if I want to make it shorter, if I want to make it into 2 tubes, I can do it. I can cut that tube. I'm going to add a little more glue at the end so it's completely sealed. And glue sticks are good for this because then you're not putting too much on. Okay. All right, and let's take that last piece. And remember, this part that I want to see is going to be face down. I'm going to roll it a couple times, glue the rest, close it. There, I've got a tube. Okay, so once you have a whole bunch of tubes, you want to start thinking about how short or long you want them to be. Like when you're first rolling them, you have an idea, but maybe you've changed your mind. Maybe you want them all to be the same size. So for example, I made a whole bunch before. I've got a whole bunch of tubes of similar colors. And I've decided that I want them all to be the same size. Okay, so I'm going to take 2 or 3 of them at a time in one hand. 3 is probably enough that you can do at a time. And now they're all somewhat different lengths. I'm going to make sure that they are even at one end, like that, and hold them together. Take my scissor, lay them across at the other end, and snip. Okay, so now I have more tubes, but these tubes are now all the same length. And then I'm going to take one of them, because if I want more of them in the same length, they have to be the same as these. I'm going to take one that I already did, line it up with 2 longer ones. These are actually the same already, so we're good, although I wouldn't mind trimming it a little bit. This one's a little bit longer, so I'm just going to trim off that end. I got more. This one is, on the bottom is longer. Trim that one off. Okay. And a couple more. So now they're more or less the same size. Okay. But you don't have to do this. You know, you can decide that you want the tubes to be completely uneven, which in a way makes it more interesting. Okay, so let me just show you what I did here with some tubes I already made. Remember, you've got your photo and on your paper. So I took a different photo and I glued it onto a piece of orange paper. And then I took some tubes and I used liquid glue to do one side of the frame. Okay, and as you can see, I lined them up evenly on this side with the picture, but because they're different lengths, they come out unevenly on the other side, which is fine. Okay, so you can stop your video now. Make about, let's see, this is how 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So make 9 or 10 tubes, depending on the size of your picture. You can always have more to work with later. Use your newspaper with paint. This one is painted newspaper. These are magazines. This is painted newspaper, 2 colors, red and yellow. And use your if you have magazines, wallpaper, not wallpaper, wrapping paper, and make about 10 tubes. And then you'll come back to the video. Okay, welcome back. So, as I showed you, I already did one side of this frame, and I did different lengths for each tube. But now we're going to do the top, and for this one I made 6 or 7 tubes of the same length. Okay, and when you're gluing them, if it's a longer side like this, maybe don't put glue on the whole side. Okay, you're actually probably better off putting them on the tubes themselves. Now, since the tubes are a little longer than the paper, I'm just going to put them at not on the whole tube, but on most of it. So here I've got one of the tubes that I'm putting at the top. Okay, decide what side you want showing. Then you're going to take for this you're going to want the liquid glue. So if you've got a tube, you can use that. If you have a big bottle, just pour some out and use a small brush. Okay, so I'm going to take this tube and I'm going to put a little bit of glue, little bit, on about half of one side. There you go. And now I'm going to lay my frame flat. Like so. Now we can have a look. And I'm going to put that tube right down here. Alright. And then I'm going to take my second tube, do the same thing, just pat it down, make sure it's standing up straight. I'm going to take a second tube, and here's one, and put a little glue on the bottom half, here, just a little bit, okay, and line it up right next to it, and line them up evenly. Glue's still wet, so you can do that. And let's take a third one here. This one's made from newspaper. Glue at the bottom. Right there. And put that one down, make sure it's lined up with the others. The roll that's like a purple and red sweater. That was what the magazine picture was from. Little glue on. Line it up with the others. Make sure they're close together. Okay. And take this piece. Glue on the end. And here we'll take one more piece. All right, this red and brown and yellow. You don't want to have too much glue. Okay. Push them together. Again, make sure they're even. You might even take a pencil if you want to line them up with the pencil. Push them against it. So now it's very even. Okay. And now we've done our top side of the frame. And I'm going to stop the video, and you're going to take enough tubes to do the side again. And since I did this side unevenly, I'm going to do this side unevenly. And then I'm going to do the bottom and take, for here it's 6 tubes, make them the same size, same length, and do the bottom that way. So if you want to make them all of your sides uneven like that, different lengths, or if you want to make them the same, that's fine. If you want to use the same colors or different colors, different mixes of colors, that's also fine. If you want to use all newspaper, that's fine. If you want to use all magazine or wrapping paper, it all works. Okay, so you can stop the video here and do enough rolls for one side of your photo, and then do enough rolls for the other side. You're going to take your when you're putting the tubes together, a glue stick, liquid glue is fine, but a glue stick is best. But when you're putting it on the paper, probably the brush with some liquid glue or tube is better. So I'll see you back when you are done with both sides. Okay, so now I've put all of the tubes on the frame. So we're almost finished with this, but not quite. We're going to do some trimming now to make everything look a little more even. As you can see, this side is much shorter than this side. Although you could leave, if you wanted to write a message or something, you know, make it into a card, you could write something here and leave it just as it is. But I want it to be a picture frame and I want it to be even. So I'm going to cut off this side just where it meets the longest one. Okay. Make sure your glue's dry before you do that though. And then I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to cut it up to where the longest side is. So let's do that first. And now we're going to do that other side where it meets the longest tube. And we need to do the same with the top and the bottom. Now, in this side, there's a little extra at the bottom, so I'm just going to cut it off at that point. Now at the top, the tubes meet, they're a little bit above the bottom. So that's tricky, but we can still trim it a little bit at the top so that it meets the end of the paper at the bottom. So let's do that side first, actually. Let's just trim these top edges. Okay, we're not trimming the paper here. We're trimming the tops of the tubes. And you want to hold it down with one finger so they don't fall off. Okay, and there, we've got that end done. And now we're going to actually do this. We're going to do almost the same thing here. First, we're going to trim the extra paper, and then we're going to trim these edges a tiny bit so that they're about the same length as the top edges. Trim a little bit. Sometimes you got to go back a little. There we go. Okay. So let's trim the extra paper first. And then let's trim a little bit off the top edges, just about this much. One. Again, hold your finger down on them so that they're not coming off. Really make sure the glue's dry. Although if one comes off, you just glue it back. So here we go. All right, and we are potentially finished. You could always add tubes here. Maybe radiating out this way a little bit. Or you could put glitter or anything else you want there. But I'm sticking with recyclable materials today. All right, so now we have a nice picture frame, and we could put it in a glass frame. We could put it against a back to prop it up, and we're done. So before we go, though, I'm just going to show you some of the other tubes I made, because I really think that for this activity, the best thing to use are magazines, because there's so much variety. Okay, so I'm going to go back to the one I made with the baby picture. Okay, and since the baby, let's pretend the baby was you, has a blue bear, I decided to make tubes from pictures that are mostly or all blue. We'll have this one or this one. This is all from a knitting magazine, sweaters. Here we've got more blue here, right? And the end result looked like all of, here, let's clean up what I had before so I can show you what I made out of mostly blue and green magazine pictures. All these sweaters and knitting. A whole bunch of these. So, and they're pretty long. I use most of the length of the pencil to roll them. They're not all the same length. That's okay. You can make them same length. You don't have to. You can trim them as you need to. But when you use a pen, make sure, because you want them to be pretty much the same width, the holes to be the same size, use the same pencil or the same straw, the same type of straw. Okay, so again, you can make a whole bunch of these. Trim them exactly how you want to. Again, if you want to make them the same size, let's say I'm going to take 2 of them, hold 2 together. There. Then put one of them aside. Then take another one that you want to trim. Put it next to it. Line it up. Now they're the same size. And keep doing that until you have as many as you want that are the same size, if that's what you're aiming for. So, you could make a whole bunch of tubes at a time and then do it. You can plan which colors you want to use. With the magazines, there's so much variety, even if it's not pictures of clothing. You're always going to have different patterns and different, each tube is going to look different. Okay, if you want your tubes to look the same, use the same color paper, same color paint. But with magazine, it's always going to look different, which is kind of cool. So go ahead, have fun finishing your project. I'm going to finish the one I started with the baby, and we'll have a look at it when you're done and when I'm done. Hi everyone, welcome back. So while you're finishing up your picture frames, I started a new one. And this is another way you can do your frame. We talked about even lengths and odd lengths. In this frame, we made everything stand out, go lengthwise from the edge. Okay. And in this one, I did that it's at the bottom. Okay, so the bottom side was I made them all the same length, and I had them stick out from the bottom. But then I had an idea, since I had so many nice shades of blue patterns, and I had that big sweater I had a big blue sweater picture I showed you. So I decided to take some of them and make them smaller, smaller, and smaller, and smaller, and smaller. So I basically trimmed them to make, it's almost a triangle pyramid, like that. And then I had them go sideways along the photo. All right. And so that was the effect that we have here. So what we'll do to finish today is I'll show you how I did this, how I did these two sides. Finish it. Okay. So what I did, let's start from the side. So what I did was I took 10 tubes. I rolled up 10 tubes of those shades of blue. Okay, here's a really long one. Okay. And I made two of this length, two of this length, two of this length, two of this length, and two of this length, and so on until they were smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. And then I lined them up. I took one of each side. I made it smaller and smaller and smaller. In this case, I took my liquid glue, it's a little easier, and I did it like so. I'll lay it flat so we can have a look. Okay, so here's my other set of tubes for the side. Okay. And what I did with the glue this time, though, was instead of putting, I mean, I can put glue on each tube, but since I know exactly where they're going, I'm going to put glue about halfway out for the length of the picture, because you don't need to have them all the same length. Okay, so I'm going to lay out glue like this. Just along here. Okay, and then I can use either the brush or the mouth of the tube to smear it a little bit. You don't need a lot of glue. Okay. And that'll be just enough to start laying the tubes on the side. And we do want them to line up with the other ones. Okay, so what I did was I made sure that this lines up with this. And then I'm going to take this one, lay it down, make sure it's centered. This one, lay it down, make sure it's centered. This one, and make sure they're up, smack up against each other. And this one. And this one, and at this point I've run out of glue where I put it down, so I'm going to add a little bit more glue. But now these are, the last four I have here really narrow, so I'm not going to put wide glue. Okay, I'm not going to put it all the way to the end because I don't think they're going to reach the end. They might, find out. Okay, now I'm going to lay down my last four. Very last one getting lost under the laptop. There it is. Okay. So now I've laid these down. And what I did for the top and bottom was I took that one big picture of a sweater and I cut out identically sized strips. What I did was I cut them out and then I took a scissor and cut around the edges so that they're all exactly the same width. Okay, these two. So I already did, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I did 5 of them. Now I got to do 3 more. And this one's a little longer. So I'm going to hold this one up. Cut the edge. Again, we want the same width. Okay. I'm going to make 3 more because there's 8 down here. I'll put this aside. Let's roll them up. Remember, you're not putting the glue on. Oops, we're not using this glue for that. We're using the glue stick. So we're not starting out with the glue. We're starting out by rolling it a couple times. Then putting the glue down. Roll it up. 1. And let's do 2. Roll it around a couple times. Glue stick. Slide it off. And for our third one, roll it a couple times. Glue stick. And now we have our last remaining rolls. Okay, so now let's take the frame back, put our glue stick away. We are done with that. Now we're going to take our liquid glue and we're going to put on just enough to and smear it around so that we can put down our last few strips, a few tubes, sorry. Okay, and we've got 1, 2, 3. This one seems a little shorter. Let me take a longer one. It seems longer. Let's trim it. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. I'll make 1 more because I feel like that other one was not quite even. Let's make another one. And 8. Yeah, lined up right there. Which one's better? This one's better. No, I wanted the same. These two. And I'm going to line them up so that they're even at the edge of the frame. Oh, and we don't want to cover baby's head. So let's move this one back a little, up, 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 up. I'm going to put this one back. It looks better. Okay. And now we're almost there. I feel like these are a little uneven at the top. So I'm just going to trim that top edge. hold it down with my hand. Adjust them a little bit while the glue is still damp. Trim them a little bit at this end too. And we are finished. You know, if you want to trim the side, you can, but that's really up to you at the end. And we have a wonderful picture frame, 2 wonderful picture frames, very colorful, that is made completely with recyclable materials. So any leftover stuff you have that's paper that you can paint, that you can cut, all of it works really well, and you really decide what colors and patterns and sizes you want. So have fun finishing your craft, and we'll see you next week. Bye.